so, yeah, thanks for having me. I feel really tall here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to walk people. We have a study again. It's a competitive grant funded through the Massachusetts Office of Coastal Zone Management. They fund about 8 or 9 projects a year. They want to increase the resiliency of coastal towns. So it's state money that goes to the towns. And it's a competitive bid, and we came to Truro. We worked with them, developed a proposal, and they got funded. And what's really interesting is that this is the second round. We did the first one with Provincetown in Nantucket. But this time we worked with the National Weather Service so we can get the data online. So town has these data now. Officially, the project ends on Friday. So finishing up, putting the dot in the i's, crossing the t's, getting the data set. So I'm just going to walk through here. We're going to talk a little bit about sea level rise real quick, because we're going to talk about it a little bit, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Inundation pathways, which is really what the study is about. And then we're going to talk about storm surge forecasting and inundation in general, whether it's through storms or sea level rise, nuisance flooding, whatever it is. Okay, a quick quiz. When we talk about sea level, what are we really talking about? Right? When we say sea level here, we're talking about tides, storm surge, wave setup. This is when wind is blowing for a period of time and the water actually starts to get elevated, right, as it gets pushed up on the beach or the coast. Same thing with wave set down and pushing the other way. Seasonal variations, all of the above, or none of the above. Yeah, when we're talking about sea level, we're talking about none of the above. We're taking everything else out. We don't want to know about tides. We don't want to know about storm surge. We're going to take everything out. All right, so the other thing we're going to talk about is the difference between relative sea level rise, what's happening here, and global sea level rise, what's happening all over the globe. Global sea level rise is, by definition, the same everywhere, more or less. It's relative sea level rise that changes. So you have all these different things. Right? You have groundwater that can actually affect sea level rise, subsidence or uplift where the land is going up or down, ocean changes in ocean currents, temperatures, melting ice, and some of these are global and some of these are relative. Right? So when we talk about relative and global sea level rise, these are the things that are affecting those. Temperatures are actually pretty important. So you might have heard at one time or another that you can't compress water. Water is incompressible. That's not necessarily true. When you get to a certain point, it's really difficult. But when you warm water up, it actually expands. So if you expand something, then you can contract something, you can compress something. And a third of the global sea level rise right now is due to what they call the steric effect. And this is as the water warms, it increases in volume, so it just takes up more space. Right? So a third of the global sea level rise is actually attributed to temperature rise. Temperature increases. Okay, how do we measure sea level rise? Well, yeah, we do tide gauge. We have one in Provincetown now. The United States Geologist Survey put a really good tide gauge right in Provincetown Harbor about a couple of years ago. So that's what we do. We can use satellites. Ice cores. We'll come back to that. All right. So when we look at sea level rise, is it really rising in water? I'm just going to touch on this for a few minutes. What we have here, we're looking at this chart, we have a rate of sea level rise, how fast it's rising, and then from the 1880s to the present day. And there's a nice correlation between global temperature and sea level rise. There's more variability in the rate of sea level rise than there is in the temperature. Right? It's global temperature. So we see a nice correlation. One goes up, the other goes up. One goes down, the other goes down. These are pretty good data. The ice core. So ice cores have, in places like Greenland, places like Antarctica, they have seasonality to them, right? There's a certain amount of snow that falls, it gets turned into ice. And you can actually see rings in these ice cores, just like you can in trees. And there's a summer and there's a winter layer. So what we can do is we can look at the air bubbles that are trapped inside these ice, inside the ice cores. And we get an idea of how warm it was in the world when that bubble of air is trapped. They did a study in the late 90s, a huge amount of effort, and they dug a 3-mile ice core through the Greenland ice sheet. There's a wonderful book, it's called 3 Mile Time Sheet. They went back 800,000 years. 3 miles, they went back 800,000 years, and then they looked at each one of these. They looked at the air bubbles. And the air bubbles, again, the ratio of oxygen isotopes. You can tell how warm it is. The warmer it gets, the higher the ratio gets, the colder it gets, the lower the ratio gets. So we actually have a really good way of looking at temperature rise in this area. In the area where it's frozen at any time during the past. And we literally just count the rings. We count the layers. So this is a the last 400,000 years on this chart. Temperature is blue, and CO2 is in red, right? So what was the atoms? There's a peak in the red, there's a peak in the CO2, there's a peak in, and then right after that, there's a peak in temperature. Peak, 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 peak. This is really good correlation. This is really, really nice. You're not going to see a better fit than this. And this is what we call natural variability, right? This is how much natural variability has happened in the last 400,000 years. It's been much, much colder, right around here. We had the Ice Age. At this point in time, about 20,000 years ago, right where we are, there's about a quarter of a mile of an ice sheet thick. The ice was a quarter of a mile thick, right where we are right now. So it was much, much colder. And we can see that. So it's been much, much colder. It's been much, much warmer. About 120,000 years ago, it was sea level was higher than it is today. And it's been much, much warmer in the past. So, if we look at this in more detail, again, this is really nice. You look at these peaks, you look at the valleys, and they correlate really, really nice. CO2, then temperature, right? CO2, then temperature. We look at this whole graph. Now, scientists, for the most part, it's really hard to get scientists nervous or concerned. Science goes really slowly, right? We don't really get that time to study things. It takes years to do studies. What scares scientists is this area right here. That's not my line. That's the actual measure of CO2 in the atmosphere right now. When the study was put out, it was about 10, 15 years ago. So, we go back here, and we look at the changes. We look at this, what we call natural variability for 400,000 years, long before we were here, and then we see this. So when we say things like, well, this is just another cycle that's going through here, well, this cycle hasn't happened for 400,000 years. In 800,000 years, we went all the way back. We haven't seen this much CO2 in the atmosphere for tens of millions of years. Right? So the natural variability are just in the water. And recently, we've gone over the 380 and we're at 410. So right now, as of April, we're at 410 parts per million CO2 in the atmosphere. So we're way above where we have been. So when we talk about sea level rise, of course, like I said, the warmer it gets, the higher sea level rise goes. This is what concerns us, because there's a lag, right? It didn't happen right away. And these are hundreds, this is 50,000 years. So it doesn't happen 50 years later. It doesn't happen 100 years later. It takes time. And that's why we say, you might hear, if we never burned any more CO2, sea level rise would still be going up. It would still be getting warm, because there's a lag. It takes time to happen. So, sea level rise. Go back to sea level rise. That's what we're talking about here. We have all different kinds of tide gauges. We really started getting good at this in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So we have tide gauge data, continuous tide gauge data from all over. Boston's one from the 1920s. Right? Again, this is removing everything, right? Taking everything out of it except what we're actually seeing. Now there is, again, some natural variability. And that's okay. It's normal, right? Natural variability is okay. But the trend line is pretty consistent. It's just going up about 3 millimeters per year. Or about a foot a century. Right? For every 100 years, it's going up about a foot. That's what we see here. And this is the regional sea level rise in Boston. In Boston, it's 3 millimeters a year. In Louisiana, it's more than 9 millimeters a year. It's more than 3 times as much. Does anybody know why? Yeah, subsidence. We just said subsidence. Louisiana, the land is going down real fast for a number of different reasons. There's compaction. They're removing a lot of petrochemicals and water, so it's actually lowering. So the land is lowering and the sea level rise is coming up. So the relative sea level rise is actually faster in Louisiana than it is. That's one of the worst. It is one of the highest rates of relative sea level rise in the world. Alaska. Did you slide backwards? No, sea level rise in Alaska is down in parts of Alaska. Relative sea level rise. So what happened? What's different about Alaska? Well, there's a quarter of a mile thick ice sheet here. There's about 3.5 mile ice sheet in Alaska. Huge amount of ice, and that's a huge amount of mass. And the continents are floating on basically plastic-like material in the inner core, in the outer core, and the mantle, right? So when you put a lot more weight on the continents, that'll actually move down. So as that ice melts, land comes back up. And that's what's going on in Alaska. The land's coming up so fast that it's outstripping the sea level rise. It's actually going faster and having a lot of problems, actually. because it's happening so fast. So relative sea level rise here is going up. In some places it's better, in some places worse. Along the east coast of the United States, unfortunately the Northeast has about the highest rate of relative sea level rise. Sorry, this is where it is the last thing. Okay. So this is the statement that makes me start to shake when I hear this. People say it all the time. My dad used to say this all the time. They can't predict the weather next week, tomorrow. They don't know what the weather's going to be. How do they know what the climate's going to be in 20 years? So climate and weather are very, very different. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change produced a study in 1991, their first one, and they made projections into the future, what they thought sea level rise was going to be. The gray is what the predictions were. And then they went back 2 years ago and they looked at how good their predictions were. The blue is what actually happened. Red and blue is what actually happened. This is 1991. My phone is more powerful than the computers they were using in 1991. These computer models. They're really good at this. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is really good at this stuff. This is another one. This was released in 2001. They did the same thing. This area is what they projected. It's going to be somewhere in here. Different scenarios for how much CO2 we're going to burn. And they look at where it's going to be. The black line is what actually happens. So again, it's at the high end of their prediction. And they're very conservative. That's what you don't... There's a lot of stuff going on. I'm not going to get into politics or anything, but scientists are always very conservative. They don't want to do something really big and flashy and be wrong. They'd rather do this. They'd rather give you a range, and then it's in a certain area. That sort of validates the model, validates their method that they do something like this. If they do say something outrageous, and then it doesn't happen, it doesn't work. So this is a good example. This is 2005, Hurricane Wilma, Hurricane Katrina. It was a disastrous hurricane year, right? And people, unfortunately, left-leaning people came out and said, this is the new normal. This is going to happen all the time. Get ready. Climate change is happening right now. And in 2006, it was barely a hurricane, right? And we found out later that one of the reasons why is when it does get warmer, it increases the amount of wind shear in the atmosphere. Wind shear rips up hurricanes. They can't form with a lot of wind shear. And that's why, part of the reason why, that when we're going to have fewer hurricanes, but we're going to have much more powerful ones, because they're going to be able to overcome that. The ones that do form are going to be pretty powerful. But the point is, we always get ourselves in trouble. Sometimes it's the media, sometimes it's the scientists. When we jump the gun, we get excited. We see a trend, we see a pattern, we start talking about these things. And we can shoot ourselves in the foot. This is really nice, right? This is what we want to see. All right, so this is the last prediction they did. The initial was 2013. The final came out in 2014. They're getting ready to do another one in a couple of years. Every 4 or 5 years they do one. And again, there's your prediction. So, depending on how much CO2 we burn, or methane, or depending on all the different scenarios that we're going to use, this is the prediction that they're using. This is what they're telling us might happen. Best guess. And that's what it is. It's a guess. It's a really informed guess, right? But it's a guess. Okay. The last slide before we get to the actual project is, again, just see all these trend lines. Land temperature, sea surface temperature, marine air, sea level. All these things are trending in the same way. The Arctic ice has been in the news a lot lately. It's some of the lowest they've ever seen. So there's definitely trends. There's definitely patterns. Again, I think we can move beyond the natural variability question, because we have a huge amount of data going way back before we were around. All right, now, a lot of web pages have these kinds of data sets. This is downtown Provincetown, and this is called Surging Seas, and it's a great website. There's a lot of good information on it. The Cape Cod Commission has one. The Massachusetts Office of Coastal Zone Management, people who funded this study, have one. And there's a lot of good tools like this, but you can't really tell. This is all grayed out. This is where you zoom in and zoom out. I can't zoom in any more than this, because it was built for a regional scale. It wasn't built for street-by-street stuff. It was built for regional. You can see streets. You can tell, where the flooding is going to occur. It's not perfect. It's not ideal for a DPW person, or someone who's a coastal manager in town. Right? So we had the idea of, and what was happening is that this was being used for that purpose. Towns were using it, people were using it, and it's not the right tool for the job. Right? So this is a big deal. We want to make sure you get the right tool for the job. So what we decided to do was come up with we wanted to map inundation pathways, not just inundation, but exactly where people are getting and when, right? Where and when. So we wanted to make it useful and usable. was really important to us. We wanted to address the concerns for what's going on now, but also going into the future. Right? The storms are happening now, sea level rise is happening. It's going to become more of a problem as time goes on. And we didn't want to have a lot of flashy, high-end software, computers, and things like that we have to generate these maps and generate these data. Sometimes it's not happening. So we wanted to make sure that it was really easy to do. And because of the way this grant was funded, we wanted to make sure that this would actually increase the town's resiliency, its ability to deal with climate change, the storm surge, and sea level rise, and things like that. And again, be able to do it on their own. That's the true definition of resiliency, or one of them, so you don't have to rely on anything unless you can do it yourself. Okay, so the first study that we did, again, we did the projects down in Nantucket, as I mentioned earlier, and then we partnered with the town of Truro and the National Weather Service. I gave a talk, and the Bob Thompson, who works for the National Weather Service opposite Taunton, he's got the coolest job title I've ever heard. He's a meteorologist in charge. Meteorologist in charge, the chief of Ballston. Meteorologist in charge. He saw our talk I did. He saw me present these data, and he said, we need to combine your work with our work, because they have a storm surge forecasting webpage at the National Weather Service where they forecast storm surge. But they don't have time to go out and look at all the different ways and places that water can flow into the town, and that's what we did. Right? So, we wanted to develop the maps of these pathways. We wanted to link those pathways to local tidal databases. When we say mean low water in Nantucket, it's different than mean low water in Truro. Right? Truro and Provincetown is pretty much the same. So we had to tie it to make sense for, we were going to install a tide gauge in Pamet Harbor this summer. So we can tie those things together, we tie the maps and the actual water level together. And then we added not only the storms up to the storm of record, which I heard was a blizzard of 78, but then we added 3 feet of that. So we can account for sea level rise going into the future. So these are places that have never been flooded before because it's a blizzard of 78 plus 3 feet, which obviously has never happened. But if sea level continues to rise, it will. So this is a way to plan for the future and also deal with storm surge then. And then, like I said, the last thing we do is we link those two things. So when this goes live, this web page goes live, you will all be able to go online and zoom in, zoom out, change water levels, and see where the flooding is going to occur. All right, so how do we do this? We get pathways and use data visualization software, which I'll show you a little bit. It's really important to do. We have to use the best available data, the elevation data, and that's LiDAR, and I'll talk about that in a minute, what that is. And then we have to go out to the field and check them all. You can't just go on a web page. You want to go out to the field and make sure that they're really there. You can use the best available data, but that's only so good. You really want to go out into the field. So we spent a couple days in Truro walking around with a little GPS unit after looking at the LiDAR in the lab and going out and checking. We had a surveyor with us too. And then we have maps. We're going to make maps to print them out so the town can have them if they need them. Okay, so the best available data for elevation is called LiDAR. Right? We've all heard of radar and sonar, but what's LiDAR? Radar is radio waves, where you're bouncing radio waves off something that come back to you and you're detecting them and you're ranging them. How far away is something? That's what radar is. Sonar is the same kind of thing, but it uses sound in the ocean with boats. And LiDAR uses light. There's a bunch of different ways you can use LiDAR, but in this instance, it's the LiDAR that fly the plane and you bounce light off the, it's invisible light, you can't see it, off the ground, and it comes back to the plane, and they can actually make a map of the land. Really, really high resolution map of the land using LiDAR and light.
How good?
Pardon?
How good? Centimeter?
Yeah, it's about plus or minus 5 to 8 centimeters, depending on where you are. In a really flat, sort of pavement area, it can be less, a couple inches in the elevation wise. What's interesting about LiDAR is that usually, and please stop me if you have any questions. Usually with data sets like this, the error horizontally is less than the error vertically, and LiDAR is the other way around. You're better in the vertical than you are in the horizontal. And it's really, really good. They get really good at it, which is crazy. How fast they can do this and how accurate it is. There's other kinds of LiDAR. There's terrestrial LiDAR. You just sit down on a tripod and you can make a map of a bluff face like this. People put them on boats and you map, like you're going to map the outer beach. You can map that whole bluff really, really quickly, really high resolution data. These are trees. They're actually pinging off the leaves. You can actually get LiDAR. You can actually get biomass from LiDAR. See how many leaves are there. If they wanted to look at it's not cheap, but if you wanted to look at how bad gypsy moths were from year to year, you could use a LiDAR system to do that. it's actually precise enough to look at individual leaves, which is kind of crazy. Architectural LiDAR. You can actually see structure, you can see bridges and all different kinds of things when you're trying to map these different areas. All kinds of things you can map in 3 dimensions. This is what 3-dimensional mapping is. LiDAR is one way to do it. You have an automated plant, you have machines going around that automated plant, they need to know exactly where everything is. And this is one of the ways you can do it. You can actually create a 3-dimensional map of industrial areas, and they're doing a lot more of this now. It is getting cheaper and cheaper. All right, what do we got here? Cars, traffic. Your self-driving car is going to have LiDAR on it. No doubt about it. It goes the speed of light. Right? You can't get faster. If something's coming at you, something's from behind you, so you want light. Light, it goes really, really fast, obviously. So this is what you want. Every self-driving car is going to have a small LiDAR unit in it. So there's a bunch of different uses for it, but the way we used it is the following. So this is LiDAR from Provincetown. Again, we're going to use Provincetown because it's just visually, it's really interesting. Then we'll show you the Truro data later. But so this is Provincetown. This is all LiDAR data flown with a plane, really high resolution. It's not snowing in Provincetown, it's just color driven, right? So we're going to zoom into downtown area, and it's just the land. That's why you don't see anything in the water here. There's no like the temperature or what the photography. But there's the breakwater, and there's downtown. Now we can superimpose this data visualization software that I mentioned. We can superimpose the picture on top of the LiDAR. So now it becomes 3-dimensional. So now the image is 3-dimensional, right? And we can take measurements. So we zoom in. I do this because I don't trust videos and PowerPoint. I do myself. So now we turn the water on. Right? Now we can raise the water level using this data visualization software. And we can slowly rise the level, raise the level, raise the level. Now, there's no what they call hydraulic connectivity here. Nothing's connected. There's water here, but that's not really water. It's a low spot. That's in flooded. This is town hall. When we did our proposal, we mapped, went on Zillow really quick, and mapped about $12 million worth of property right here. That's just the stuff that showed up. There's town hall, there's church, there's things that weren't on Zillow. So just this one area, right? Just what's in the blue, right? But it hasn't connected yet. The water's not here. We draw a profile, it's getting 3-dimensional data, and we can see where the high spots are, where the low spots are. This is where it's going to happen. This is A, because we're doing a profile right through the land. That's B, right here. So there's the beach. There's the inlet here, inlet there. Now look at the water. As soon as it gets here, that's your storm type pathway. We know exactly where that storm type pathway is. Right? It's not just looking at the picture. We went down and we shot it with our GPS. So we know exactly where it is, we know the exact elevation. As soon as it gets past this storm type pathway, this is just a little area for us. But as soon as it gets past this one, it's going to flood the whole area here. Right? So the one here. And then boom. This whole downtown area gets flooded. 2 spots. They can prevent this flooding by dealing with, mitigating these 2 spots. So that's a storm type pathway. This little dot is your storm type pathway. We find it by using data visualization software, and then we go out and we shoot it and make sure it's right. Because the LiDAR isn't always right. It's good, but it's not perfect. And remember, we're in a coastal area. Coastal areas change, right? They change from time to time. So the LiDAR gets you going, gets you in the right neighborhood, gets you in the right area. And then you have to literally go out and survey it and actually see where the low spots are. That's all you're really doing. Just looking where the low spots are. So, secondary pathways. Okay, this whole area is flooding, but now this whole neighborhood won't get flooded until that one spot floods. Right? The same thing here. This neighborhood, which is really close to the water, but it's going to get water this way. It's going to get water coming around here, and if you walk through Provincetown, this is a really low area. You'll feel it when you're walking through here. If it really rains heavy, this area will get flooded with the drainage net. But you can follow the water, and that neighborhood here will get flooded this way. It goes all the way around. Alright, so this is the data set that we built. This is the data set that we're going to talk about. And again, this is what it looks like. As soon as it floods, you get this area here, and you get this information, whatever information you might want to have happen when you mouse over it, or the data will pop up. Alright, Truro. We'll get to the good stuff now. So, when we did Truro, when we did our analysis using the LiDAR, we found 95 potential storm type pathways. These are potential ones. Then we had to go out in the field, we looked at each one of these, and we found 59 that were what we were called storm type pathways, right? 55 made it into the final batch of a few of them were just a little too high, outside our range, when we went out and measured them. And then we had 47 what we call field corrected. So that means that when we went out and shot the storm type pathway, according to the LiDAR, it was at least 3 feet away from where it actually was. So the LiDAR is good. The LiDAR got us where we needed to be, but we still had to tweak it. We still had to move them a little based on whether it was things that had changed since the LiDAR was taken. This LiDAR was collected in 2013, 2014. And we went out in 2016, so it's 2 years. Some things changed, some things don't. So we have all these data. Just to give you an idea, so this is a video that we could do when we had the water come up, right? We're just south of Pamet on this here. And the water's slowly rising. I tried a video on this one, you've already seen the other one, it didn't work at the end of the world. And then you can see how all these points are going to flood and when they're going to flood. And that's how we did it. Really, really simple. What we did here, and what we did not include in the CCM report, is this area. This is Upper Pamet. It doesn't flood, right? It's not going to flood from this direction. You might have a really bad storm and have a little water here. But it doesn't flood. But the town is talking about maybe sometime in the future restoring tidal flow to this area. And what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to see, well, if they really restore tidal flow, what would happen? Where would the floods go? Where would the water go? What homes might get flooded? That kind of thing. So we just did it anyway. We're in the field. We're doing it anyway. We kind of added, threw it into the bonus. So when you write the CCM grants, you write them for the town. The town gets the work for free, right? Because it's a competitive grant. So all this work that we did here didn't count the cost of town anymore. Right? We partnered with the town to do this. Do all these data sets right in here. We asked for a little money because we can't give this to CCM. We can't actually do a coastal resiliency grant and include this because there's no way this can get coastal. This can't get flooded, from a coastal storm because it's technically tidally restricted. So we did it anyway for the town. So another way. So I showed you a couple downtown and Provincetown, but another storm type pathway that we can do is just a road. This is Mill Pond. This is Mill Pond Road, right? The only thing, houses aren't going to get flooded here, but the road's going to become impassable. Right? At some point, when water gets to this place, emergency vehicles aren't going to be able to get through. You're not going to be able to drive through. So again, we raised the water up, and we wanted to see exactly when it was going to flood. And again, we go out there. This is where the LiDAR told us the water was going to flood. And this is where the final was. Not only in this area did the LiDAR say the water was going to flood from this side, Pamet's out here, the ocean bay's out here. But when we went out there, we realized the road was a little lower, and it's actually going to flood right here. So the LiDAR's great, doing it's great, take it out in the field, you're going to check each one of these, and it takes time. And we used our handheld GPS, it's very high resolution. It's pretty much the best elevation data you can get. It's actually less than this, it's about a centimeter. It's really, really good. It's called real-time kinematic GPS. Okay, so you have your data set. These are, again, all these data are publicly available. The town's going to have these data by Friday. They're going to be online probably in July and August. The website will go live. But these data are here and you can look at them. The color code is when the actual area is flooded, right? At what elevation. So when I say where and when I meant where geographically, but when is when the elevation gets to be a certain height. Right? When the water gets to be a certain height, that's when it's going to flood. We didn't do any modeling. We didn't do storm surge modeling. We didn't do sea level rise modeling. We didn't do any kind of modeling because modeling is going to increase the amount of uncertainty. If you were going to do a storm surge model for Truro, if you were going to do a wave model for Truro, a sea level rise model for Truro, it would cost you 6 figures. And the uncertainty would be pretty high because the models weren't developed to do town by town. They were developed to do huge stretches of coast. So we can do it, but the uncertainties are pretty high. The uncertainty here is literally a couple inches. It's the best elevation data you can get and the best elevation instrument you can get with our GPS. So we want to simplify it as much as possible. We don't care how the water gets in. We don't care if it's a storm, we don't care if it's sea level rise, waves, doesn't matter. As soon as it gets to a certain elevation, we know there's going to be flooding. So if you've got a storm and you're seeing a certain level and it's not high tide yet, and you're seeing it's going to be, you've got 2 hours of high tide, and it says with the storm surge it's going to be 14 feet, start looking at your orange ones. Right? That's how simple it can be. We start looking at the color codes. And again, any information you want on this. So this is what the website looks like. This is a sneak peek. They gave us a link, and it actually works. It's pretty slow. But, so this is their website. This is their baby. And all we did was we added our storm type pathways. And if you go throughout the town, so this is the Provincetown Harbor, what they do, so this is an example. They're predicting 1/2 foot to a foot of storm surge. That's what they're predicting. There's a storm coming. This is what they're predicting. So they give you a total water level, 10.5 to 11. Well, now you know what the prediction is going to be. right? Like I said, when that gets, 11 feet, it really isn't high. Good high tide is 12 feet. So it's not until you get a little higher. And then we start moving these, and they color-coded these, so all of these are there, the tides are their flooding categories, the minor, moderate, and major. So when you're listening to weather forecast for minor flooding, this is going to be tied to that. All the areas of Truro are going to be tied to that weather forecast that you hear at the National Weather Service. Minor flooding is predicted in these cities. Well, now you're going to know. The town's going to have that data. You're going to have that. And you just got to go up. And you just move up this elevation. You see all the storm type patterns. Now 16 feet, 17 feet, that's not going to happen. That's beyond the storm of record. That's beyond the blizzard of 78. But in 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, when you have that much sea level, now it's in reach now, right? So there's long-term planning the town can do, there's long-term planning the county and the state can do with these data. And just to zoom in real tight, like I said, we can zoom in really tight, we can show you the storm type pathways, we can give you all the information about when things are going to flood and where they're going to flood. And when the National Weather Service did this, this is their information, and we came up with the idea of a low flood of record by 1.8 feet. So this is a nice little thing. So if the blizzard of 78 happened again, this is the area we get flooded. Right? So if a storm that we've already seen happens again, this area is going to get flooded. So they added this little one, which is pretty cool. Remember the blizzard of 2015, January 2015, the big storm? It hit at low tide, right? That blizzard hit at low tide. If that blizzard had hit at high tide, it would have been worse than the blizzard of 78. By not much, by a couple of inches, but it still would have been worse. So we dodged the bullet in January 2015 because it would have been higher than this. It would have been massively. Yeah, so that's and that's it. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
We actually have a mic if people have questions. We have another mic. Not loud.
Yeah, now if we can turn the lights on now.
You should numbers against MLLW. Is that mean low tide?
That's mean lower low water. So you got two low tides today. So that's the mean lower low water.
So when we see a number in the paper, like Sunday morning there was a really high tide of 12 feet, about 1 a.m. Is that comparable, apples to apples, with the 16 here?
Yeah, so that's a big problem. Scientists are really, really particular about what's called data. What datum are you using? And that's a big problem. Sometimes 12 foot high. It depends. It depends on who's writing the article. They really should say mean low water, mean low water. They don't always. And it's, to my mind, I'm not sure there is a convention. Typically it's mean low water. You guys would know what charts are in. But it can vary. So it can be once you find out what the data is. Because there's a relationship. And in the report, there's a relationship between all these different tidal datums within problems. Good question. Yeah.
How does this relate to the firm?
The flood insurance maps. Yeah. So the flood insurance maps were made for flood insurance, and they're very coarse scale, right? They, to my mind, they weren't designed to be used house by house, as odd as that seems, right? Because they're really, really coarse. They use them for that reason, but they were trying to figure out flood insurance rates for an area, right? And then sort of superimpose, because you can't map every single house, that specific house. So those data are pretty coarse. If you look at a flood insurance map and you look at a road, the line that delineates the road, that line can be about 50 to 60 feet if you look at the scale of the map. We don't have 50 to 60 foot roads around here, right? So the scale of the maps weren't really designed, and I don't think I'm not making stuff up, and you might not know this, but those maps weren't really designed to do that kind of, they're being used that way. But the design of the map, the way they did it, wasn't really designed. So we did it better. And we don't tie flood velocity rates or flood zones to these data, but the National Weather Service does. So you can go on this website and turn that flood, the V zone layer and the A zone layer on and off, and you can see where they overlap. I won't speak to the accuracy of that because that's not our data. And it's a dangerous game when you use something, for one thing, that's the saw in the tree, right? It's the wrong tool. So zooming in on something that was really built as a paper map, right? You had to hire somebody back in the old days We haven't related it to the flood zones because it's a different thing. Long answer to the question. Yeah.
Are they doing the same thing along the coast of Florida and the Carolinas and Hilton Head, Maria? So they are doing the same thing that you presented today?
But everybody is doing the inundation the extent of the inundation. To our knowledge, no one has come up with the idea of the pathway of where exactly is it happening. But it's not, I mean, we came up with this idea 3 years ago. And science moves fast. Nobody's published on it, and I'm not aware of anybody actually doing that, but they might be. I mean, we're doing it, and I'm sure people in Florida don't know about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, say that, like every year at Ballston Beach, the beach is constantly changing. So if the dunes are changing, won't that affect your maps and locations?
It will to a certain points, because I said, like, we mapped all the way up to the storm record plus 3 feet, so we're way up there. Can storm waves get over that? Absolutely, yeah. And if you notice, we didn't do the ocean side. We didn't do the ocean side for 2 reasons. One, it's a natural seashore with really high bluffs. So yes, it could change it, but it would be easy to understand, especially in Ballston, it's such a low area, where that water's going to come from and when it's going to get there. That's really easy. This hasn't been done before. And we kind of did that. I did a report, the Center for Coast Studies did a report about the Ballston overwash a little while ago, and we talked a little bit about that there. So yeah, absolutely. With the natural variability out there, it can change. These won't, right? Because we've already mapped those. And ones that we haven't mapped, you know, obviously, that's not going to change because we haven't mapped them. There might be new ones that form due to erosion. Yeah, that's just nature. But it's a good question. Yeah.
I've often heard that it's been advocated to restore tidal flow to the back Pamet. But your map makes it look like not a good idea. It makes it look like it would create a huge flooding issue. They're more than you might expect if you just did it tomorrow.
Yeah, let me go back here. All right. So there are a few. These are really low, and these are high. But all this one, and that one. I think this one on top of my head. These are all roads. So houses aren't really getting flooded by these. They're just washing over a road. But so yeah, I mean, if you think about what's going on in Wellfleet with the Harry River restoration, there's a lot of work being done. They're going very, very slowly. And the question always is, do the benefits outweigh the drawbacks, right? So would restoring this tidal flow in this area be a greater benefit? And the reality is, you can't get flooded by surprise now, right? We mapped them. We know where they are. They're relatively simple to address. It's when you don't do this, and then an event happens. We pretty much know now with flooding in, you know, we haven't opened it up yet, right? So we're way, way ahead of the game. So I don't think there's a danger of things being flooded sort of by surprise. Yeah. Yes?
Do you have plans to do studies like this in other towns, like locally?
Well, the harbor would be fantastic, right? That would be really cool. So the grant funding is year to year. We didn't do another round of these this year because we're just doing other stuff. But these aren't that expensive. I mean, not to say it's not that expensive. We can, and we have thought about going to a town asking for others to do this because, you know, it's not all that expensive. But I would love to do more, yeah. Yes?
Thank you. I suppose that a large quantity of water rising is due to the melting of the polar ice caps. So I would have a few questions just based on that fact, if you will.
Sure.
The first one is, how much of a rise in sea level would be had if these two entities were to melt? And the second one, presuming that this is going to take a few hundred years, maybe less, probably less, how much construction foresight has been had to preserve the actual shape of Cape Cod, Miami, you know, and so on, and places around the world? How, and third part of that question now is, how long ago did the Dutch start making their dikes?
So the first question is, if Greenland ice sheet in Antarctica melted completely?
Yes.
It'd be like 15, 20 feet of sea level rise. It would be catastrophic. Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's all. And that has happened in the past. Tens of millions, about 35 million years ago, off the top of my head, we had a hot house Earth, they call it. There was no ice. There was no continental glaciers. There was no ice anywhere. And you had sea level much, much higher than it was today. So yeah, it's not, but it's geologic, right? It takes a long time. But now that we've seen these accelerated rates of CO2 and sea level rise, it's not going to take that much time if things continue. So if we were to continue doing what we're doing, it would be decades, hundreds of years maybe, for all of it. That would be unimaginable, quite honestly. It would be unimaginable.
A few generations.
Quite a few, yeah, a few generations, sure. Well, yeah.
Thank you.
Talk my hand, okay, look this side. Smart people than me have done this, but let me get to the other two.
Sure. What you have thinking?
The other one, then we're going to have to go on to somebody else, just not in for sure. How much work is being done to preserve the shape of Cape Cod in places like Miami? Miami's in a lot of trouble, as we know, it's very low lying. There's only so much you can do. I think the Cape Codders are lucky that the Cape Cod National Seashore is out here, because the outer beach is allowed to erode. And that's a big deal. When you have the land and you're allowed to erode, you're in much better shape. The worst thing you could do would be to sort of wall all that off, because...
No wall.
Right, no wall. That's the worst thing you could do, because you would prevent that sand, that natural sediment, from being eroded and moved along the beach. No matter how bad a winter you ever have out here, you're always going to have big beaches on the other beach, because it just erodes. As a matter of fact, the worse winter you have, the bigger the beaches are the next summer. That's just the way it works, because there's all that much more sand released to the system. So that's a great thing. Miami's not going to flood. Manhattan's not going to flood. Boston's not going to flood. We're not going to allow that to happen. Right? We're going to do something. Retreat when it's possible would be great. We're Americans, we have to retreat. So it's going to be peaceful. It's likely going to be piecemeal. It's likely going to be, there's more nuisance flooding here. It's happening in a lot of places up and down the East Coast, in Florida, places like that. All of a sudden, the high tides start flooding not just 2 or 3 times a year, but maybe 10 or 15 times a year. And it's starting to happen. People are starting to see that. So it's going to be, I think, it's going to be piecemeal. And then until you have big projects, there's people talking about putting a barrier around Ballston Harbor, doing the feasibility study, what would it cost and how it would work, and things like that. So there's all different kinds of ways we can address that. I have no idea. But I think I'm going to have to move on. We need to talk about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I see the colors and the number of feet.
Yes.
I'm going to stop actually. But each point seems to be much, much lower than that.
Mm-hmm.
How low is it and how exposed is it?
Beach Point, see if I had to go back to the, it's got some spaces in it. It's definitely got a couple in it. All these up in here, right? So it's got a few low spots, absolutely, yeah. But I don't know the elevation on top of my head, but it's beyond, it's got to be a pretty good storm to get up there. There's a lot of walls in Beach Point, right? The road itself is relatively low, but to get over there, you get the houses, you get the structures, you get a lot of walls, and you get some good-sized dunes there also, thankfully. One of the lowest spots actually is...
Not on the side, not on Pilgrim Lake side, is very protected, high dunes, lake and everything,
Yeah.
road.
Yeah.
And then you have the basic things with the...
Sure, and you have like 7 or 8. You do have low,
You have them in colors which are around 12 feet, it looks more like 3 feet.
Oh, well, this is the mean low water. This is an average, not an average. It has to do, 0 is sort of mean water, and then you put, you get 10-foot tide range here. So it's not, it might be 3 feet above high tide, maybe a really high tide, but if you wait until it goes down 5 feet, now you're 7, 8 feet above that. And we're talking about mean low water, so yeah, take about 10 feet tide range. Yes.
The dot on the ocean side, across from Beach Point, where is that?
Yeah, so that's a really funny one. So you got to go over the data lead you, right? You have to follow where the water goes. Given enough time, hypothetically, water would flood here and go all the way up in there. The parking lot would actually flood from the bay.
Where is that?
It's right in the parking lot of Head of the Bay. Yeah. And it's goofy. It might not ever happen, but that's where storm tide pathway is. It floods from the bayside into Head of the Bay. Yeah.
I have heard about the problem of the permafrost melting. Are people doing studies on how much that would affect sea level rise if the methane started to be released from permafrost flooding and are melting on, what has been happening on that?
Yeah, methane is a much, much more powerful greenhouse gas than CO2. It's much, much more. Orders of magnitude more, right? And people are studying that. But I don't have those kinds of numbers on top of my head. I know people, a lot of people looking into it. Exactly. You have to think about moving in permafrost.
But it would increase everything.
Yeah, it would contribute to the CO2 and the global, that greenhouse effect, and it would increase the synchronization, very synchronized. Over time. Yes,
Is that white line on your map, is that the Truro and Provincetown?
roughly. I did it PowerPoint. I mean, the line's up here, right? I mean, Turo's right up there. But that's where we stop.
And then the green is roughly lower?
Yeah, again, that's just a rough approximation. Oh yeah, this point should be there, I'm sorry. You took these points out. Yeah, it does. I'm sorry. Yes, oh, do you have another question?
Is it really, it looks like it, all of the vulnerable spots are pretty much clustered along the Pamet.
Yep.
Is that, do you see, and that little sort of cluster?
Beach one, yeah.
Correct? And that outlier is south?
Yes.
Which would, I don't know that.
Yeah.
You know what that is? That's.
Oh, do I know what it is?
Where is that? We need to know.
Yeah, all these data are going to be available on Project Net. I don't know what I'm talking about. This was we did this last year.
And then what about the next step of preparedness? It's one thing to say, you say you're on board, you know it's coming, but.
Oh yeah, no, this is a very big deal for towns because it takes a long time. You don't have a lot of capital in it, so you start to plan now. You start to plan for the ones that are high up. If it's out of the ordinary in terms of vulnerability. This one goes, and that's how your area is going to run. That's what. Each one of these has what we call a pathway activation level, where as soon as water hits here, it's going to go a little area where it's going to flood right then and there. Each one of these storms have happened. So, yeah. Yes.
Your earlier map showed over so many million years, first the CO2 rises, and then the next is the water level.
Temperature.
Yeah. So right now, the last one showed the CO2 is way up. So what is the lag time between that and?
Yeah, and centuries.
Oh, centuries?
Yeah, it can be. So in that 400,000, sometimes it can take hundreds, if not thousands of years, right, for that lag. But again, that was natural variability, and it went up really, really slow. Right, and you've seen those changes. It's really, the one we're doing now in the last 50 years is a straight line compared to all those other ones.
Straight line.
So we don't know. That's the thing. We don't really know. It's never happened before, as far as we know. So we don't really know. So there's a fair amount of uncertainty in terms of when that lag is going to happen. That's what people do. Yeah.
Could you comment on the potential effect on groundwater of sea level rise?
Sure. I mean, saltwater intrusion is a big problem. And as a general, this is when saltwater gets into the groundwater as sea level rises. It can actually get into the groundwater in a number of different ways. And the groundwater will actually rise in elevation as sea level rises. It's not one-to-one, it's not linear, so if you have a foot of sea level rise, the groundwater table might not rise a foot. It changes and it's varied. The groundwater table isn't flat, it's not a flat length, it's very variable. So sea level rise will absolutely change the groundwater. But again, not my area of expertise, and I don't know how fast. Yes?
You talked about how the coast is changing on each side. Is one growing, the other getting narrower?
Sure.
And what impact that would have on the induction pathways?
Yeah, so basically, we didn't really map inundation coming from the ocean side. We didn't know it like we did. This is all coming from the bay. So all here, right until you start to make that turn, it's all, the erosion rate is pretty steady over the long term. Right? It's about 2 to 3 feet a year. Now, having said that, when I came here in 2009, the house just north of Ballston Beach lost about 40 feet in front of one storm. So that average rate of 2 to 3 feet a year is an average. Sometimes you don't get much erosion, 3, 4, 5 years, and boom, you get a big one. So that's an average rate. What's going on here is entirely different because you got a natural shoreline here and it just does what it does. If there's no storm, you're not going to get much erosion. If there's a big storm, you're going to get more erosion. Here you get a lot of structures, you get a lot of alterations to the coast. So there's variable rates much lower because you got lower wave energy, right? And fewer storms in the bay side. So lower rates of erosion, but now you're actually, once you armor a coastal bluff like that, you're not allowing it to erode. Remember what I said earlier about you guys are lucky that the seashore is letting that bluff erode? When you prevent this area from eroding to protect the house, which is a reasonable enough reason, now that sand that would have fed that beach is no longer getting there. And that's why a lot of conservation commissions make you nourish the beach if you're going to build a structure there. They estimate, well, it's going to be about 300 cubic yards a year, so you have to put that much on the beach to sort of make up for that. But it's not really ideal. So there's, up in here, there's accretion. I was at a meeting in Provincetown where people were complaining there was so much accretion. Because they had to walk almost a quarter of a mile from their front door out to the beach, because there's so much accretion there. Yeah. So,
Can I also ask, is there any evidence that the number of nor'easters is increasing? And it seems like they are, and the season's getting longer.
as far as I know, there have been no studies that can look at long-term changes to extratropical or nor'easters. We do a lot of tropical storms.
Right.
And we see the frequency, we think the frequency is going to decrease, but the intensity is going to increase. But as far as I know, there have been no satisfying studies that say that's happening. Might be, we just, we haven't seen it yet, haven't proved it, or shown it. Yeah.
Been a number of studies done on increasing tidal flow from the bay to East Harbor.
Yeah.
Is that affect the flooding situation on Beach Point at all, or?
So we did not look at flooding that would come from East Harbor if the tidal restriction was lifted necessarily. But no, it doesn't. We know enough about it when we did Provincetown, like not for this study, when we did Provincetown the first year, we looked at where water would come from, if it would come from East Harbor, if it would just have the same tidal range, and it was low enough that we didn't really see that much. So we didn't really go investigate too much. Yeah.
I know you didn't map it, but if the sea level is rising in the bay, it's obviously also rising in the ocean.
Yes.
And so, if you have all of this going towards the ocean from the bay,
Yep.
we don't have any information on the water coming in the other direction of that flooding as well. So all of these flood maps would probably, I would imagine, be far worse.
Well, so someone mentioned about flooding in Ballston Beach. If you think about the ocean coastline of Truro, there's not many places we're going to get a lot of flooding, right? There's not many low places in Truro. So it would change a little, but it wouldn't change much. Change a little. There's maybe one or two places. That's a good question, yeah.
Have you taken into consideration, at least in my years here in Truro, there's 4 major barriers along Pamet that have eroded through that are the full reason for a lot of the flooding.
Right.
I mean, Hurricane Bob took out 50 feet of sand dunes.
Yeah.
The old train tracks now eroded away, and that causes that water to come up to Old Colony Road, which, is a storm away from flooding over. And the east end of Pamet had an old man-made dam that, I'm thinking 45 years ago, washed out. And most of Fisher Beach Road went with it. And it seems like the flooding hasn't recovered since.
Well, what we did when we did this is we used, again, the best available data, right? So we used the data from 2013, 2014. That's when they flew the LiDAR. So if something happened in between then we wouldn't have been able to see that. I remember in Provincetown when we did this, we saw something that we didn't see in the LiDAR, and we thought just that it happened in between the time the LiDAR was taken and the time we were in the field. We didn't see any of that in Truro, but that doesn't mean it wasn't there. So, yeah, we don't know. Any other questions? You guys are in the audience. Yeah.
You had a slide earlier back in the presentation that had a website, not a website or a web address, I think was a flood map, and I wanted to write it down here.
It's not going to be live yet. It's going to be live when the National Weather Service says it's going to. Unfortunately, it's not up to us. So that's the name of the website. Yeah, you can go to the website now and you can do this with multi-hour data.
Right.
Yeah, it's called coastal flooding threat and inundation map.
And this is just in the Boston area. I'm from Virginia Beach, so I'm just.
I think this is an experimental thing that the Boston office, the Taunton office, is doing for the National Weather Service.
If a person just wanted to kind of see in any area, the keys, Virginia Beach, what you have a resource that you would consider to be the best.
Yeah, I'm gonna get there. Surging Seas is the one that's the biggest. They're everywhere. It was right at the beginning. I'm sorry. Going back into time. All right. It's called Surging Seas.
Okay.
Right there. ClimateCentral.org. That's the one that's all over the U.S. And it's really good to start with. Like I said, it's a good tool. It's good to start with.
Thank you.
It's not as good as ours. Just different. Yeah.
When you were showing the maps of Provincetown, the flooding, you were saying if, I think you said the summer of 78, if it happened,
Yep.
there'd be all that flooding. Do you mean if it happened now or when the predicted sea level rise happened?
No, now, so these say that image I showed of whether that's particular storm type pathway is either above or below blizzard of 78, it's right now. So if the blizzard of 78 were to happen now, that area would flood. And we'll get the same, elevation going on. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for all coming out, I really